Welcome to Classic Comics Cavalcade. I'm Jason Sachs.
I'm Amir Malikpour.
We're doing another show and tell episode this week. It's fun stuff that we picked up and we want to chat about. What have you picked up recently that you love?
So I got a bunch of stuff but I also found some things. But one thing was this Friday, my favorite comic book store in the Bay Area in San Francisco specifically is called Silver Sprocket. They're also like an independent comics publisher, which kind of dabbles, or not dabble, but specializes in like independent literary comics, alternative comics, actually producing some of the self-published items, and just a lot of like, I think the cutting edge cartoonists they stock a lot of the cutting edge cartoonists, non-traditional, non-mainstream comic books. So Silver Sprocket is my favorite. And they had a signing with a double signing with two authors, two creators, cartoonists, writers, MS Harkness and Caroline Cash, which they had a signing, but in addition to that, they had a really cool reading. And so the thing that I picked up, so I already was familiar with Caroline Cash, and I can just show you a couple of things from her that I've purchased recently. It's Pee Pee Poo Poo from Caroline Cash, and it's kind of like I would say, of course, this reminds you of something, right? Like the 8-Ball.
Yeah.
So her comics are one-person anthologies, very similar to 8-Ball. And so her covers are generally parodies or homages to popular comics that she enjoyed or are. So this is the one that she did with the 8-Ball one, which is like kind of like the cover for it. And then this one I think is an homage to like a female alternative comic book, like women's comics or something, with
comics,
with who actually I thought was going to be there also. I forget her name, the famous Trina Robbins, exactly. I thought she was going to be there also. I was very excited, but that she was not. Unfortunately, Caroline Cash could not make it. However, I was exposed to an amazing new art. I mean, she's not new, but new to me, new creator called MS Harkness, and these are the two books that I got from her. And actually, I read them. I did get another one of her minis, 6-issue mini comics, but these are the ones that I actually finished and read, and it's amazing. I love them so much. I mean, who would think that I would? I mean, she's a great creator. She basically, the stories about this. It's an autobiography comic about her, her rough upbringing and her being a student at art school and then graduating, and how she balances out trying to make money and trying to support herself and does her art, and then of course people she falls in love with, and she gets treated poorly by those men and those sort of things. So it sounds very like, but
show some inside pages, Amir.
Oh yeah. Just one thing I do want to say is if you delve into one thing I do love about her comic booking is that she's got all these different types of art styles, and she also alludes to some artists that we all like ourselves. So for example, so here's the book that just came out by Fantagraphics, Time Under Tension, and she'll actually like interact with some cartoonists that you may or not know. So some examples, I wish I would have, there's a lot of amazing, like, there's really cool pages here that I should have bookmarked, but I would just recommend everyone just read themselves. One thing that's really cool about it is that, she has this cartoony style, but then she also does this is the one that's more prevalent. However, like whenever it gets serious, she does like a different cartoony style. It's like totally different, which is like I'm a mark for that. Like if I see somebody doing like different types of cartooning in their artwork, or different, like go from cartoony thing. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact terminology for it, but going from that to like almost like photorealistic to impressionistic, I just go gaga for that sort of stuff, and she's amazing. I think here's another style that she does within the book, depending upon what the story is about. So this is the other book. This is the one that came out prior, called Desperate Pleasures. Essentially, this is the start of while she's in school and she decides to like get a personal trainer certification. And then this second book that came out from the first one was done by Uncivilized Books. Second one that came out is by Fantagraphics, where she's actually like in the midst of getting that test, like passing that test and getting hired, and then also like throughout she has relationships with a one particular person, a male, I mean, romantic thing. So it's great. I loved it. I think one of the things about it is that there's some MMA, like some fighting involved. I'm not a MMA person, although I know a lot about it because I used to have roommates who were really into it, and I knew a lot of the fighters and a lot of the terminologies. And so she's very like in that world as well. So it's like bodybuilding and like fighting, and her action art is really like, it makes a lot of sense. Like, so great art,
really
great
cool.
creator, I highly would recommend her work.
You gotta get a whole portrait of her life. Like it's got a lot of stuff about aspirations and approaches and things she loves to do, and just her personal life too. Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I definitely recommend. And then she also did an amazing reading. Like it was really fun. It was like really funny and fun. Like, so that was really good.
Wow, that sounds really cool. That sounds really cool, Amir. I am going to pull
Let's see
up.
what you got. I'm excited.
I'm going to pull up. I need to turn off the background again, don't I?
Yeah.
We'll turn off the background. So there's a magazine, digest-sized magazine called Mineshaft that's been published for well over 20 years now, and it's published out of this publisher in California. And he publishes some of the greatest cartoonists in the world. The covers of Robert Crumb cover. Not sure who did the back cover, but it's beautiful. And he's got stuff in here by like Kim Deitch, David Collier, Glenn Head. And it's on issue 44 now. You can see there's a really nice Mary Fleener story here. So really nice Mary Fleener story, and then all kinds of stuff. Diane Newman. I think that's who that is.
Is that an homage to the cover? Is that an homage to Eileen Crumb?
This is Robert Crumb drawing Aileen.
That's like a new one, right? From after her passing.
Yeah, I think so.
A
new one, yeah. So it's really sweet and sad. Awesome abstract art in here too. It's a lot of, and then fiction. I've been subscribing to this zine for a long time. Crumb's underground or blues musicians.
Wow, is that a Crumb drawing?
It's a Crumb drawing.
Wow, I've never see. That's a different style, don't you? Do you think? I've never seen him draw like that before.
That's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Crumb in the corner there. So yeah, you can find out about this magazine at mineshaftmag.com, I think. I'll post the link right there and also in the notes. But it's this like beautiful anthology zine with all kinds of really interesting, like amazing stuff. Some Drew Friedman art in here. There's a lot of Friedman art in these issues. So I can't recommend this magazine enough. Seem to be really nice people who run it too.
Where
So
are they located at? Where they publish out of?
I think they're in California. I'm sorry, they're in Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And it's been published by this couple for a long time. My goodness, I can't remember their names now. I should have put that. But yeah, there's they have lots of back issues available, and they're all just real treasures because it's this very kind of informal way to present work by these amazing cartoonists. So yeah, cool stuff.
Cool.
So you
Anything
have to
else?
share.
Oh, I think I talked a lot. I was gonna see if you have another thing. I can share another thing, but
I'll go with another zine type thing. So if you watch cartoons, fake kayfabe, Jim Ruggs,
yeah,
86 zine, and also uh this other zine, this black and white zine. Love how this picks up the light. Look at that.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
This is like a reproduction of 80s comics, and it's kind of fun in its own kind of silly way. But he showed off the 86 zine, of course, on the kayfabe channel. But this is like, for me, it's like having written actually the 1986 chapter for our American Comic Chronicles book. Like, this is like perfect for me. Just loved it. I mean, just look at that spread alone. That's just so
It's pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah, I actually had that on my list too, so I'm glad that you talked about it.
Well, what did you think of it?
I love it. I mean, I need to look into it a little bit more, but I think it's interesting that you know, it started to get me thinking, which is like a question I wanted to ask you about, like, what do you think are like the most influential years in comic book history, like overall, like alternative to not just mainstream stuff, you know?
Yeah, actually, 86 is the most important year. It's actually the year everything changes
Yeah.
because you have Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then Dark Knight, and you had Mouse, and you had Watchmen premiering, and then the black and white boom was happening, Turtles boom was happening. Um, the new universe happened, so Jim Shooter was shot down and moved to his whole other projects. Like, there's been no year that's been like this, where like comics became so mainstream. I think 86 is probably the most important year in comics.
Well, what is second and third, you know, in your
What
opinion?
is second and third? So second, I would say, would be 1962, the birth of Marvel,
Hmm.
when Spider-Man and Iron Man and I believe Avengers all premiered in 62. That was a pretty big bolt of lightning from above, and everything changed at that point. What would be number three, though? That's a good question. Do you have any opinions?
I mean, I'm not the historian that you are. I would think that Action Comics change of like traditional comics to like in a lot of ways you would think that 1937 or 38 that it came out,
38, yeah.
and that was probably like the doom of the comic book industry in America because it's moving from everything to just superheroes, right? Superheroes are becoming popular and like everything else is kind of diminishing as superheroes are growing, and then now American comics are known for superheroes. I
Yeah,
think
that's a
that
good that's a
Action
good call.
Comics other than that, I would just think like I don't know when the boom of the newspaper, is it newspaper comics or like daily comics, because those were like they were the superstars, right? The daily comics artists. So like I don't know, like Dick Tracy type of stuff, like because they made a lot of money. They were like one of the richest, some of the richest people were like cartoonists for in the early 30s or 20s or whatever.
Yeah, people like Al Cap and uh the the guy who did Flash Gordon. Oh my God, I'm having a Sunday morning. Uh, we're like huge rock star creators. I mean, people
Mm.
follow their careers forever. Milton Caniff was like world famous, not just in the comics world, but uh, really famous. And because the way syndication worked, if you were picked up by more than a certain number of newspapers, you were making crazy amounts of money,
Mm-hmm.
like like similar to what like Hollywood stars were making at the time.
Yeah, I think that's
Alex Raymond was the name I was searching for.
and then I don't know, would the I
Like
would think.
even up till like Charles Schulz was making like great money with Peanuts, obviously. Bill Watterson might be the last of them. Burke Breathed, maybe.
I
Like those
mean,
people.
Gilbert guy, what's his name? That guy made a lot of money.
God Adams, yeah, mostly from marketing and merchandising, which has always been part of the deal.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it was syndicated on newspapers, and it was like
Yeah.
famous. So.
I mean that, but I'm saying that because like one of the reasons Charles Schulz became so rich is because Peanuts was everywhere. TV
Mhm.
shows and advertisements and toys and everything else that, it became like this just part of American life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of the other years, I think the '90s, because of the immense amount of sales they had. I think that was the most amount of sales they had, like in terms of money. And then I also think like, well, I'm trying to think, were there any independent cartoonists that came about? Like Klaus became famous in the '90s, right?
Well, the 90s was a big era for either indie cartoonists or cartoonists who, someone like, well, Sim was still continuing. Um, um, we saw Strangers in Paradise, and Bone was mostly self-published during that era. But we also had people like Matt Wagner still doing Grendel, and Hellboy was growing. Not really an indie book, but like indie minded. There wasn't close editing on that. Uh, Sin City, and The Next Man by John Byrne, and Marcher, all kinds of books like that. Uh, Monkey Man and O'Brien and all that stuff too. Actually, yeah, I guess if I was going to pick another year, I might pick 1993, which is basically the peak and the beginning of the drop of the comics industry.
Mhm.
So there was still, especially in the early part of the year, there were Image books and Valiant books that were selling over 1 million copies an issue. I think the excuse me, Turok Dinosaur Fighter #1 came out that year and sold like 1.75 million copies. Just insanity, right? And within 2 years, everything dropped off a cliff and literally was selling like 17,000 copies instead of 1.75 million. Uh, but there was also this amazing boom in 1993 where all these publishers started jumping into the comics industry. There's like Techno Comics, and there was Ultraverse and Comics Greatest World, and Marvel alone had 4 or 5 different lines. So they had the Clive Barker line, they had the Epic Heavy Hitters line, and they had the Marvel UK line. There's like all this stuff that came out during that year. And it was this amazing, like this kind of feeling like a rising tide lifts all boats, because all kinds of great creators were being published during that time. All kinds of crap was being published at the same time too. People were rushing into comics from outside of comics to make money, but also to be creative. And so, like, there were a lot of interesting indie books published at the same time that all these mainstream books were published. That's a time like when Hate was selling, well, Hate was in color during that time. It was selling 25, 30,000 copies an issue, which was huge for something like Hate,
Yeah, that's
because it
crazy.
all so tied to the grunge movement. They're selling at record stores and stuff. And so, yeah, I guess 1993 was like the last year of like euphoria.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
2000's pretty interesting
yeah,
because it was like after the entire boom busted, like by 99, like comics were selling less than they were selling in 1990. And the industry was like really truly dying. And then suddenly in 2000, the first X-Men movie came out and the Ultimate Universe premiered, and felt like things were starting to change.
yeah.
uh I wish I could pick something this century. I'm not sure I have a year in mind for this century.
Maybe we should, you know what it is in sports like news, they usually do like a top 10 draft years of all time or
Oh,
top 10.
let's do that. Yeah.
Maybe we could do like another show, go over each year and like rank them, 10 to 1. Obviously 86 will be one probably, but
Look at that.
although I would like to maybe do more research on that. I know 86 is relevant to people our age, a little older, a little younger, but um or 93.
1952 is pretty important.
Is that EC stuff?
Milestone year. Yeah, EC comics were selling like crazy. 1941, 42 is it'd be a big year because comics were so popular. in at like military bases as well as in the US. Of course,
Yeah,
if you're only thinking about American comics too. I mean, you think about foreign comics, there's this explosion. We should
yeah,
do that. Let's do that next week or something.
yeah. That'd be cool. Anything else, or did you want me to?
Why don't you go next?
Okay. I went to a store and I picked up some dollar comics, which was cool. Like, I didn't really get too much. Actually, I'll show you. I had a great find. So let me show you the find first. I haven't read these, but I got all these issues of Love and Rockets for like $4 each.
You already have those, or you didn't
I
have the
do. I'm
originals?
sick. I'm sick. I do have the. I couldn't pass them up. So I got those. I will also, okay, so I got 3 things for $1 that I read. One of them was, one is the Chester Brown comic book, Yummy Fur, number 28. This was one that I didn't have, and I read it, and I don't really remember much of the other issues that I've read from before, but this one was pretty interesting. It's just it's interesting to see his comic, because from my understanding, this Yummy Fur first appeared in mini comics. And so he basically took those minis and put them into a comic book issue format.
So he started Yummy Fur with a mini comic. I have the mini comic in my collection, actually.
Oh,
A
wow.
collection of it, because it was reviewed in the Comics Journal way back when, and they said this is amazing. They published like the equivalent of like 4 or 5 comic issues of it. So that was where he started, and then from there all the stuff is new.
Okay, it's interesting because the panels are really oops, it's a bad word. That's the name of the issue.
Yeah.
It seems like they would be from a mini comic, because he's leaving a lot of space here.
So he had this really unique way of doing his comics, and I have this Mary Wept at the Feet of Jesus too, which he did for Drawn and Quarterly like 5 or 8 years ago, and it's got that same thing where it's got. So what he did, and you can see it's got all 4 panel grids. And my God, 1,000,000 pages of notes in the back. What he did when he did his comics was Brown would take little scraps and draw panels on each individual page, and then physically paste them up onto a piece of paper. So he drew panel by panel instead of page by page.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's a really different style. So that's what you're seeing there.
Oh, got it. That makes sense. And what's the size of these panels? Do you know when he drew them?
They're small. They're pretty close to same size as published.
Really?
As far as I know.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know about what you're looking at, but like in this book, it actually feels like they are drawn same size. Like the lettering feels about right. I mean, yeah, really, really different cartoonist too. What do you think of the way he tells it?
I liked it. It's of its time, I think, and part of the reason I say that is, it's stuff that other people have taken and made, combined with other great cartoonists to make better. It's kind of like saying, like, you look at a computer from the 1980s, it was amazing, brilliant, like but right now we have computers that are stronger because they use the technology from them, and they, that kind of. So I think it was fun to read. It was just a relationship thing, not just, but a relationship comic type of thing. So he's got his unique voice that, I'm not so familiar with his stuff. But I always, whenever I get it, especially if it's $1, I'll buy it. I don't care.
Picking up.
Next thing that
go ahead.
No,
not a big fan of Brown's. His style seems so like personal to him, and I just don't really appreciate it the way he wanted to be appreciated. But I get what he's doing, and I think it's interesting.
He had a comic called Paying for It that I read about like prostitution and stuff like that. And it was fine. I mean, it was interesting. What I thought was was really cool was his friend Joe Matt made a parody comic of it. Have you heard of it? It's called Paid for It.
Yeah, I think so.
I love that comic. It's like basically turns it around where he's like gigolo and stuff. So it's just kind of funny.
That's awesome. What's the other
And
thing you got there?
the other thing that I got is it's a Dark Horse Classics 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea drawn by Gary Gianni.
Oh, nice. I bet that's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And he's printed, I believe he's printed this in like upper large size format. What the reason this book is so important to me, or this story, is because when I was a little kid, I was a big Jules Verne fan, and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was my favorite book. And so it's cool. I can't wait to like kind of relive it in comic formats. I read the book like I love the book, so it's cool.
I got an answer to your Chester Brown comments, which is
Oh,
modernized and newer. So I'm the Patreon for Kevin Huizenga, who
oh,
I've talked
nice.
about before, and I love his work so much. And so this is his newest, I think, self-published comic. And yeah, what I love about Huizenga in part, yeah, self-published, is he draws a lot of very abstract work, but then he also plays so much with the medium and time and the way we relate in space and time with ourselves. Like this is just such a cool page, this warming up thing.
Oh yeah, that looks cool. I want to get that. I might
It
get it.
just plays with the format and the way we think about time and what the way we go through life. And it's just a such a fascinating way of like looking at existence. And so, yeah, to me, this is state of the art. And I know he's been doing this work forever. Um, but like the very simple styles and the way he plays with
Mhm.
styles and time and evolution and the way people grow and change through time. Uh, ever since I first found his work, I've just been amazed by the quality of work he does.
Yeah, I love Huizenga's work. It's beautiful.
Even just like this first tier on this page, the way shows him moving through space and time is so interesting.
Is the story fun?
Yeah, well, like all his stories, it's just very kind of trippy in interesting ways. And then because I'm on his rather his Patreon, I got a page. He sent me a page of original sketches too.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So I got my Huizenga originals.
One thing that I'll be quick and I'll just talk about two things. One is I'm a big fan of Bubble Scene, which
Hmm.
talks about comics and comics interviews. And number 17 was the one that I happened to not have. And it happened to have the, MS Harkness, who was signing and reading parts of her book there. So that really worked out. I'm glad that I didn't have it, and then I got to buy it, and she got to sign. I got to have her sign it, so that was kind of cool. But I love Bubble Zine. It's just such a cool magazine. I highly recommend it to whoever likes comics. And I'll just say the other thing is, we've talked about Richard Corben. I'm not in love with Richard Corben, but for some reason, I'm addicted to, if I don't have something from Corben and I see it's affordable, I buy it. And there's a Marvel comic Richard Corben did, Starr the Slayer. I've never heard of this character, but I have all the 4 issues now. I completed the issues, and so I haven't read it yet. I'm probably just gonna look at the
I
pictures.
love that run. It's really cool. It's got a twist to it that I think is so clever.
Oh, cool. I don't know the character actually, so.
You're gonna love it. I'll close out with my latest piece of original art.
Oh, nice.
So last time we talked, well, I guess it was 2 weeks ago in video time, we talked about Trevor Von Eeden and Thriller.
Oh,
And so I bought a page of Trevor's original art, which is from a Batgirl story he did. This
wow.
is probably 40 years old now. And you can see some of the lettering fell off, but also some of the lettering is like on the bat is pasted up, which I think is cool. Yeah, this stuff fell off on the top. And at that time especially was loved drawing these like weird forced perspectives
Mm-hmm.
because this doesn't make any sense here. But it looks so cool, and there's Batgirl on the top, like staring down at them. I love the bat symbol for the caption, and then like the way he tells this with the cross hatching against their the faces and stuff. It's just like such a fun, stylized page. Only
Oh,
he drew. Only he drew like that. It's
it's
just a
great.
cool piece. He posted it to Facebook, and it's like, yeah, very reasonable price. It's on the DC paper.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jason.